What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Fantasy Football. My name is Ryan Linkletter, and I'm here with Connor Allen from Bleacher Nation and 4for4 Fantasy. We are doing another mock draft today. Connor, how we doing?
Great, man. Appreciate you having me on. Football season and training camp is in full swing right now. It's pretty crazy. There's injuries seemingly every day. So if you've already drafted, I'm sure you're holding your breath to get through the training camp. But if you haven't, I mean, there's tons of edges to be had. And I think a lot of interesting notes and injuries that are happening that can impact your drafts.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, every day we find out something new. Yesterday it was like Hollywood Brown's now out. And, today it's AR's having another dominant day in camp and he's figured it out. So every day we're getting new storylines, new information's coming out. And whether or not you're having your fantasy draft today or in 3 weeks from now, you guys need to be staying up to date with all the information. That's why these mock drafts are really good to kind of be locking in and paying attention to. So we're going to hop right into it here. We'll pull up our draft right now. I need to make sure those sleeper sounds are off because those are always a nightmare when you're going. Connor's got the 6th pick here, and I have the 12th pick. We are doing a PPR 3 wide receiver mock draft here with 12 teams. And let's hop right into it right here. Connor, the 6th spot this year. How you feeling about being in that location in the draft?
I actually really like it. So I think it gives you access to one of these guys that has already been listed here. You got Bijan, Saquon, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jameer Gibbs, who has been reportedly playing in the first parts of snaps instead of David Montgomery, which is a change from last year. But now we're in a spot where I love CeeDee Lamb this year. I'm a huge fan. I think the Cowboys are going to pass the ball even more. They're not going to be able to run the ball. And beyond that, too, like they added George Pickens, who I think is a perfect complement. And I tweeted this out today, but CeeDee Lamb in his last 21 games, last 2 seasons with Dak is averaging 22 PPR points per game, literally 100 yards per game in 22 games. So massive sample. Dude's a baller. I'm a big fan here, so I'm gonna go with CeeDee Lamb here with 6 overall.
Dude, I love me some CeeDee Lamb this year. I mean, him and Dak and healthy, like those guys just know how to do it. I know last year a lot of people were like a little bit frustrated with that combination, but there was a lot of other stuff going on in Dallas that I think impacted it. CeeDee Lamb's in for positive touchdown regression this year and should be in for a really solid season. I got him, as my 5th overall player. Him and
Yeah.
Jameer Gibbs, I go back and forward with a lot. It's definitely an interesting one there. Back half of the first right here, the last mock draft I actually did on the channel, I went with this guy, and it's Brian Thomas Jr. I have Brian Thomas Jr. as my wide receiver 5 right now over everybody else. And, the thing about Brian Thomas that excites me is that Liam Cohen knows how to utilize his wide receivers. BTJ is going to be really productive with Liam Cohen as his coach. And we all saw it last year. You look at this 2024 game log with him, his production the last 6 weeks of the year is unmatched. That was with Mac Jones. Now you have Trevor Lawrence fully healthy. You enter Liam Cohen. A lot of stuff is looking up for Brian Thomas Jr. And I don't think enough people mention this when talking about him. The defense, and I get auto pick there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I
I think
love
you might have
having
gotten
internal
auto Derrick
timer.
Henry.
Yeah. But to finalize my point, though, we do not have to worry about Brian Thomas Jr. missing out on value right now just because of the fact that the Jaguars defense is going to be so bad that they are just not going to be able to run the ball as effectively as they need to. And BTJ is going to have that value. I need to go change this real quick before I get auto picked again. I do not want to pick Derrick Henry in that slot at all.
I thought that was funny. Yeah, I think there are a lot of better picks than Derrick Henry there, especially in the PPR. So I'm glad you're in on Brian Thomas. Who else are
Yeah,
you gonna go with
100%.
here?
I'm gonna go with a guy that you might be a little bit hesitant about, but I'm going with Devon Achane here. And the reason why I love myself some Devon Achane is when Tua's played, Achane has been an absolute baller on the field. He is going to have a ton of that, shorter type of passing game in this Miami Dolphins offense with Jonnu Smith gone. Waddle and Hill are more the guys that will stretch the field and work intermediate. Achane's just that guy that's going to work underneath that I really like. And his rushing volume last year, his efficiency numbers took a massive drop. You look at his game log last season, right? His yards per carry significantly decreased. And you look at it here, it went from 7.7 to 4.5, right? I think he's going to hover between the 4.5 to 5 range, especially with Mike McDaniel as his coach. The biggest concern with him is injuries. He's had a lot throughout his career, right? But this is where you go and get a Jalen Wright handcuff potentially later to supplement that. I think outside of McCaffrey potentially being available at that slot, I think I find myself drafting Devon Achane the most.
Yeah, no, I like the Devon Achane call there. It's It is definitely different, but in PPR, I think that's a key difference here. Like standard, probably going Henry. But I
Yeah.
do think that, Achan in PPR league, especially with John Ugon, can make a massive impact on this Dolphins team this year. And like just specifically from the 12 or 11 spot, I'm looking for one of those guys. The Achan, Brian Thomas. I'm not opposed to double tapping wide out if Neighbors, Nico, or Amon Ra falls to that end either, because I think this is one of the deepest years of fantasy football, at least at the top that I can remember. I think there's like
Yeah.
legit like 17, 18 guys that are worthy of a first round pick, or like a fringe 1-2 round pick. Like Bucky Irving, I mean, we went 203 in this mock. I see him go late second all the time. I mean, most years he's a 1-2 round pick after crushing the end of last season. So,
Yep.
but this year's just so deep. And then you got Nash and Genty. He's a good look too. So, there's a lot of different ways you can go. And I think I'm back on the clock. I'm not sure if it's, oh no, we're good. Okay, cool. Back on the clock here. Went with CeeDee Lamb with my first pick. This is kind of a dead zone for running back. So normally, again, I think you chose balance to start the draft. I generally prefer to go with a balanced approach. But in this spot here, I'm going to go with Drake London. His
Nice.
splits his splits with Michael Penix last year were nuts. I mean, just like the two games that he played with Penix were wild. And so, yeah, that's a super small sample size. But I think there's a sneaky chance here that Michael Penix is like really, really, really good. And, no one really predicted it, because you look at the receivers he was playing with that he broke records with at Washington. It was Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and then Rome Odunze, who's done nothing in his rookie year. So, like, I still think Rome can be good, but, like, I mean, Michael Penix throwing for like 5,000 yards with those guys, I think should say something about the quarterback. So I'm pretty excited about Drake London.
And the thing is, too, is Darnell Mooney, another training camp news. Like, he potentially could miss a few weeks to start the season. Drake London is going to get more down the field targets with Penix, and he's going to have an even higher target share than he had last season. I love myself some Drake London there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a fun look here, and we're in a spot. So it's like PPR, start 3 wide receivers. Again, I was really hoping Chase Brown would come back to me, or Jonathan Taylor. I thought that would be an awesome look here. We're kind of in that little tough spot here. I'm not huge on JSN. T is fine. And then so I think for me here, it's probably looking like I would either try and reach for Jaden Daniels, or even I love George Kittle. So I'm just going to go with my guy. I'm going to go George Kittle.
Good pick.
We're at a spot where Brandon Ayuk's going to miss part of the season. Debo obviously is gone. Juwan Jennings is banged up. Ricky Pearsall is banged up. Like, George Kittle might just be the alpha, like the focal point of the offense. And his splits, even without just one of Debo or Ayuk in the last couple of years, has been incredible. And now you have for sure Debo gone and like 2 other guys who are a little bit unproven, who I still like later in drafts, but I think Kittle could be an alpha this year. So I think Kittle is like just like a great early round tight end target.
Kittle is such a good value right now. I think where Brock Bowers is going right here in like that 2-5, like right at the end of or early second round. I don't love that value. I love getting McBride in the back half of the second, or Kittle between this middle of the third to the 4th round. Like, those feel like such better picks than saying, hey, like Brock Bowers was an absolute monster last year. I'm just going to go pick him because he was so good. There's better values to be had with McBride and Kittle right now. And I really like where Kittle is, especially like in your end, you get 2 great wide receivers, and now you have Kittle and you have an elite start to your team. And that's exactly where you want to be.
Yep.
I'm in the spot though, Connor, right now, where it's like you get past these first 2 and the early half of the third, and you're just like, man, nobody is a good value at this point, where it's a little bit intriguing for me. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pay a little bit of a premium on Kenneth Walker at the running back position. I love me a little bit of Kenneth Walker this year, and the part of it is I think him and Clint Kubiak are a really good match. And the biggest concern is obviously health with Kenneth Walker. I'm going all in on the risky RBs with health right now, but Kenneth Walker, we saw his target share increase from 2.5 targets per game to 4.4 last year. Clint Kubiak obviously has utilized a ton of running backs in the passing game throughout his career, and he's also mentioned that Kenneth Walker is the most talented player on this offense. Everything is working in the right direction for him to excel, and he's also working in more of a zone scheme that plays better instead of a gap scheme, which is awesome to see. Kenneth Walker, when you watch him, you get really excited because there's flashes where, man, this guy looks like a top 5 running back, and then you watch like the Seahawks offensive line just crash out and do absolutely nothing on a play, right? But you have to trust that Clint Kubiak and Kenneth Walker is a true match made in heaven. I think out of these guys available, I have myself going back and forward with Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker in my rankings. But right now, I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker as I feel a little bit more confident in him potentially reaching a higher ceiling than Breece Hall, and that's why we draft those guys.
Yeah, that's he's one of my favorite guys to bet on, like alternate overs on in week to week basis in the NFL, because he's just like a walking explosive play. And each week, I mean, it's like all it takes is one, and he's so good when he gets the ball. It's just about health, and then I'm curious to see how that offensive line does in a new scheme. It's like I think that's a key point for the Seahawks team in general. Like if this offensive line can't hold up. I mean, the Seahawks could be, a bottom 5 team. If they can play at least reasonable, they could be an awesome team. It's just it's a major turning point, I think, for this team.
100%. At this point, with the guys available, especially in 3 wide receiver, I don't really like what I have available, but I'm going to go with your boy here, DJ Moore, at wide
Nice.
receiver in this point. And, the reason why I'm picking Moore over guys like you have Mike Evans here, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rashee Rice. I was a big Rashee Rice stan for a little bit just because the suspension didn't look likely, but I don't know if I could pick him before round 5 now with the current suspension. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's a little bit overvalued at his current ADP. It feels like we're drafting him closer to his ceiling than where he reasonably will be, kind of based on where he's utilized in a Drew Petzing offense where they don't target deep threats, and that's all they utilized him as last year. And then Mike Evans, I just can't buy into an older receiver like Mike Evans. I don't know what it is, but the DJ Moore pairing with Ben Johnson is exactly what makes me excited about drafting him at this point. I think DJ Moore, we saw him just 2 seasons ago have a 1,300-yard season with Justin Fields as his quarterback. He's never scored 10 touchdowns in his career, and he's never had an offensive coach like Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson is going to utilize him in the slot and on the outside, which is exciting to see. And we saw how good Amon-Ra St. Brown was and how beneficial Ben Johnson was to his career as well. So I think DJ Moore is a sneaky candidate to be a low-end wide receiver 1 this year, and I really like him in basically in anywhere in the 4th round.
I love it. Yeah, they're just going to use him, like we see this little note here from Sleeper on the right side that you flashed at the screen there for a second. It's like they're using him more creatively. They're giving him like handoffs. They're doing like end arounds. They're using him more in the short screen game. But I think that's just the baseline. And I think if you look at Caleb too, like I think there's obviously questions about how many games the Bears will win. But from Caleb, from like passing perspective, will for sure be better. And if you look at Jared Goff's progression, like when he was in 2021 with Dan Campbell, with Anthony Lynn, threw for like 3,200 yards, 19 touchdowns, nine picks. Got Ben Johnson the following year. They added Amon-Ra St. Brown. They bolstered the offensive line, similar to what the Bears are doing, adding weapons and offensive linemen. And then he throws for 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns basically, and like only a couple picks. His yards per attempt went up an entire yard. So like, who's going to catch the ball? It's going to be DJ Moore. It's going to be Colston Loveland. It's going to be, I think Roman's good too. Like, but you're getting a guy who I think DJ Moore this time of year is going to be like a late 2nd round pick in a lot of fantasy football leagues because he's got like some massive games.
Yeah, 100%. Who we leaning here at this point?
So this is interesting. I think so because I have no running back. So I do like Devontae Adams, but because I have no running backs, I think Omarion Hampton is a great pick in the mid 4th round. There's a lot of weird stuff going on right now with the Chargers. So Najee Harris obviously has the fireworks incident, which his agent initially says is a superficial eye injury. So, my brother-in-law is an ophthalmologist. Which is like, someone who does surgery on eyes and like everything like that. I asked him, I'm like, what does this mean? And he's like, oh, well, I don't know until the official diagnosis, but basically it's like, he probably didn't mean to use superficial. And if he has sunglasses on, he's not going outside. Like he's like really resistant to light. Basically, he said that he probably has one of 2 things, and both of them, it's like an unknown time frame to come back. Like you don't know. It could be a couple weeks. It could be months. And also the problem with this is like, when you stress, like when you're like putting stress on your eyes, essentially of like whether it's sunlight or even working out and like blood pumping more, it can like cause vessels to burst and you like legit go blind. So like he's playing a really sticky situation where like if you told me Najee Harris comes back in a week and a half right now, I wouldn't be that surprised. But if he misses week 1 and into the season, I also wouldn't be that surprised. And so Hampton, 22nd overall pick, they're going to run the ball a lot. Like he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Like I think he could be this year's like Jahmyr Gibbs in a sense of like he's explosive. And even with Najee Harris missing a little bit of time now, like the whole plan I think was to get Najee involved early, be the 1A. Hampton kind of works his way in, second half of the season play. Now at this point, like Hampton's probably going to start week 1. Najee wasn't on the team last year. So even if Najee comes back now, like I think Hampton's in for a big year.
And I think the interesting part about like the Amari and Hampton thing too is we're currently drafting him in the same spot we were prior to the Najee Harris injury. It's not like his
Right.
ADP had a massive shift. So we're basically drafting him at this point as him being in a split backfield. And right now, there's chances that he potentially could be the RB1 to start the year. It's an absolute steal in my mind, and there's a lot of value to be made there. And like he's priced right around a guy like Joe Mixon, who is a worthless pick right now in the first 5 rounds. The guy has a foot injury. He's approaching 30 years old. He's never been efficient in his career. Like you have to pick the younger guys that have that upside potential versus a guy like Joe Mixon, where he's like, oh yeah, Joe Mixon was really productive last year. Oh wait, he's got a foot injury. Oh wait, he's approaching like 30 years old and he's never been efficient. Like you have to find a way to pick these guys with higher ceilings, and that's how you allow yourself to go win a draft.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go on a limb here with Mixon. I'm gonna say he doesn't play at all this year. That's a hot
Ooh,
take, but you might catch some strays there from the YouTube comments. But I feel pretty good about him not playing for the majority of the year at this point, based on some other stuff. But I'm gonna go with so. Anyways, draft Woody Marks and Nick Chubb late in your draft. I think those are both great selections. I'm gonna go with
you heard
here
him.
my third receiver, Xavier Worthy. I think is an awesome pick here. Rasheed Rice likely to miss 4 to 6 games. He was like a deep threat early in the year and then transitioned into like the short intermediate game, really late in the season and like crushed in that role. And so I think as he kind of progresses as a player and with Worthy or with Rasheed Rice out, like I don't know that Rasheed Rice even like being suspended and coming back, like is he just immediately going to soak up all of those targets again right away? I'm not sure that that's the case. If Worthy's playing well and soaking up those targets and deep targets, like I'm sure that Rice will play a role, but Worthy is just like if he's playing really well, which I think he can, and he did the end of last year, like that could be massive. And they've said like 17 times, like we need to bring back the deep ball. We need to be throwing deep again. So Worthy's going to have some massive explosive games. Hollywood Brown, like you mentioned at the top of the show, already potentially a little bit banged up. So, and Travis Kelsey, I mean, dude just wants to retire and hang out with T Swift. I don't blame him, but I think it's done. Like he's going to get that late season Gronk treatment, I think, or mid season Gronk treatment, and just like he'll be big in the playoffs, big in big games, but I don't think normal games that he's going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, and I think the fascinating part about Xavier Worthy that a lot of people, oh man, I got sniped right there with the George Pickens
Oh,
pick. Dang. All right, but the Xavier Worthy pick, and this is why I love him right now in drafts, right? Even if Rasheed Rice is healthy, and Rasheed Rice is clearly the number one receiver for the Chiefs, Xavier Worthy last year led all wide receivers in red zone rushes, and he also ranked top 10 in red zone targets. Andy Reid is going to find a way to get his most explosive playmaker the ball in the red zone. And that's what you want to see. He already has a rapport with Mahomes now from last season being the team's wide receiver one. It's not like the Chiefs don't throw the ball. Like they're top 5 in pass rate every year. They're going to have enough volume to support 2 to 3 guys in fantasy football and still have like running backs that could be viable. Like don't get worried about Xavier Worthy just because Rasheed Rice is going to be on the field more this year. Let's take a look at who we got in the spot. Looks like a lot of Chiefs are just sitting right in my lap right now. Um, right
yeah, you
there.
could you could do a Mahomes.
Mahomes Kelsey stack back
Yeah,
in two
right.
years ago. 2 years ago, walking away with that in this round would have been
Yeah,
insane.
nuts.
I'm gonna go with Tet McMillan. I absolutely love Tet McMillan this year. And like I mentioned, I was eyeing up George Pickens. I think Pickens is a great pick, but Tet McMillan with Bryce Young, and I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, Tet McMillan can't be good because Bryce Young's his quarterback." Did you guys not see what Adam Thielen did? Like old Adam Thielen, washed Adam Thielen, what he did towards the end of last year with Bryce Young as his quarterback. Now you enter the top receiver in the draft class. I'm not counting Travis Hunter because who knows what he's going to be this year completely. But Ted McMillan is a 6'4", 6'5", sorry, listed on here. But he's a ball hawk type player. He's going to have really good red zone utilization. We've seen Bryce Young support wide receivers at a high level at the end of last season. I love Ted McMillan, and Dave Canales, another guy that comes from that Tampa Bay offense that had a ton of really good receivers like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. He's going to know how to utilize Tet and get him the ball, which is something that I'm very excited about. He has really high upside. His floor might be a little bit lower than some of the other guys in this range, but like I said, I'm picking for upside, and that's what I love about Ted McMillan.
Yeah, Ted's a great pick. I think so I'm going through this right now with a buddy. We're doing like a high stakes FFPC league or whatever. And I'm like, look, Ted's range of outcomes, like he could legit be a first round pick in fantasy next year if he's like the alpha, 8th overall pick. He, is just crushing with Bryce Young. Bryce Young's biggest strengths are where Tet wins. He tested well. He produced in college. Like, he's a legit, like, could be an alpha. He could also just not be good and like not, earn targets, but that's fine. You're getting him as a 5th round pick. You just bench him. It's season long league. It's like, you don't need him to be a smash here. He's not a 2nd round pick. It's not like Marvin Harrison from last year where it's like all projection or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like, he was the 8th overall pick and like is in a pretty good spot. And so he's a 5th round pick. I think it's a great, like, high upside, like low cost swing.
That's the thing, though, too, is I think a lot of people are hesitant. Like Brees Hall, for example, and Marvin Harrison Jr. from last year. People are hesitant on, like Tet McMillan, a rookie coming in. This price is reasonable now, and people are still like, I don't know about that. And I think a lot of people get hesitant in fantasy football based on past years instead of looking at the current situation. Obviously, some guys are going to carry over, their efficiency, stuff like that, if not the situation's not changed, kind of like Marvin Harrison Jr. Or you have guys like Brees Hall, where it's a brand new offense and a new opportunity for him that could be completely different. So I think there's multiple ways to attack it. At this point, I got to go with TJ Hawkinson. I think the tight end drop off after Kelsey, I want no part of right now. Sleepers, I mean, there's a few later in the draft that I could rely on PPR formats, but I think in half PPR and standard, it's a little bit less comfortable not getting one of these top 6 tight ends at this point. And I'd like Hawkinson in the 6th round. I can get behind that as my tight end. Last year, we saw him work back from an ACL injury, and he wasn't super productive. And now he's priced at a reasonable price here in the 6th round, where the 2 years prior to last year, he was within the top 5 tight ends. KOC knows how to use him. Obviously, with Addison and Jefferson there, the targets are going to be dispersed, but this is going to be a really good passing offense this year. And I think JJ McCarthy will be good enough to support all 3 of those guys in fantasy.
Yeah, nuts. Hawkinson, I think, is a pretty fun pick. It's like, it's tough because I think that there's like the argument of like, oh, there's a lot of mouths to feed, but also Jordan Addison is going to be suspended for 1 to 3 games. Justin
Yep.
Jefferson had a hamstring injury. Like, even then, even if all of them are healthy, like, I think Hawkinson's in a good spot to eat up some volume in certain games. Like, this offense is just so good. It's really tough to pick too many holes with what they've done. If you can do it with Sam Darnold, you can certainly do it with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, the thing is about Hawkinson too is that when he was gone, they utilized tight ends the exact same way. This tight end role in the offense has the exact same utilization regardless of who's at the position. And obviously, if Hawkinson's there, he's going to have a little bit higher of a target rate. But the guys that were playing behind them had a reasonable target share on a weekly basis, playing with Jefferson and Addison.
Yep. No, definitely love that. And I'm going to go with here. I have 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. I would normally go with either Waddle, probably in best ball, but I think here Travion Henderson makes a ton of sense, especially in PPR leagues. People are saying that he's going to be like their pass catching back. Plus, like Ramondre Stevenson last year, I believe led the league in fumbles. He had 6.
Yep.
Also, again, he's just getting a little bit older. New coaching staff here. They drafted Travion Henderson early in the 2nd round. It's kind of a surprise to most people. They revamped the offensive line. Like, the offense in general should be better. So, like, I think Henderson could catch a ton of balls. In best case, he just like is their workhorse. Like, I think that's also within his range of outcomes. So, like, bare minimum, he's going to catch balls and score some touchdowns. And the upside case is like he finishes at like a fringe RB1 because he's just the bulk of their offense, which I think is possible. Like, I would not be surprised to see him be just significantly better than Ramondre Stevenson from like day 1.
From watching tape, I love watching Travion Henderson. He's basically a baby Jamal Charles and Jameer Gibbs. I don't know if he'll ever live up to those guys, but when you turn on the tape, the guy's insane. Like, he can catch a ball, take it to the house right away, and that's exactly what you want for an upside pick. You went with the upside running backs and the rookies, and I love it. Puts you in a great spot right there to have either a really solid RB1 with an elite receiver core, which is a great place you want to be in.
Yeah, no, I love like this kind of build. I've been liking the early tight end one. Then same, like, you can recover from like, I didn't take a running back early, but again, you
Yep.
take like a Hampton, a Henderson, and I'm going to add to that here with Rome Odunze. We already touched on it a little bit here with DJ Moore, but like, I think Rome, again, like, everyone can succeed. Like, it's not like a one or the other situation where it is a lot of times in offenses. Like, Rome can definitely succeed in this offense, along with DJ Moore. We just saw Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, all have plenty of success in a pretty run-heavy offense, to be honest, for the most part. Now, I'm not as convinced that the Bears are going to be able to run the ball anywhere near as well as the Lions, so which could lead to even more passing volume for this team. So I think both Rome and DJ Moore and Colston Loveland are all like legit great picks at their current ADP.
Yeah, and I wasn't a big Romo Odunze guy prior to training camp, but with Luther Burden basically missing all of training camp, we haven't heard any reports because he was supposed to be their projected slot guy. And I'm like, you know what? Slot guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, going to have a role in this offense. But Luther Burden's been a no-show basically in camp so far, and he's just starting to get worked in. Romo Odunze is going to be better off because of that. And I think his work last season was quiet, like 730 yards as a rookie. That's not bad at all. Like he's going to take a step forward this year, and you're getting him in round 7 around some of these other guys. Caleb Johnson's a guy I was hoping that would fall to me. I really love me some Caleb Johnson this year. I think he has an
Same.
incredibly safe floor. Bo Nix was a guy I definitely would be looking at if he fell to me. I'm higher on him than Mahomes and Mayfield right now. Based on the guys available to me, I already got 3 wide receivers, my 2 running backs. Looking at some of the guys available at this point, I'm going to go with the guy I've been talking up just this past week, and it's Stephon Diggs. Diggs right now at his current ADP is a massive value, right? Everybody was expecting him to be on the PUP list, potentially miss the first 4 weeks of the season. Nope, he's just going to be ready week 1, and he's going to be Drake May's number 1 receiver. Last season, right, the production, you look at the game log right here, solid wide receiver 2 production in Houston, not as the team's number 1 wide receiver, and he was 30 years old. Now he's coming back from an ACL injury. We'll see how effective he could be off of that, but Diggs has never been a guy that's beat players with his speed. It's been route running and stuff like that that makes me excited about it. And I think Diggs, with a young quarterback, they're going to find a way to get in the ball early, and it's a guy that I really like with wide receiver 2 upside, especially in round – I'm getting him in round 7, technically round 8 right now, but I like that spot that I'm getting him in drafts. Trying to – turn now is a little bit interesting for me. As I'm looking at some of the other players I have available to me at this point,
Yeah.
and none are screaming values.
You already have a tight end. Otherwise, I think obviously the Isaiah Likely news is pretty impactful. Could
Yeah.
miss up 6 to 8 weeks, which obviously gives Mark Andrews a massive benefit there for the first month of the season. But again, you already have a tight end, so you probably don't really need that right now.
Yeah, and I'm surprised John is still going over Mark Andrews in some of these drafts, which
That's
makes
shocking.
no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, Jonnu. I mean, maybe they just didn't adjust his ranking or ADP or something. I don't know who's in charge of this. I mean, I wouldn't take Jonnu in the first 10 rounds probably.
No, I don't even know if I can draft him at all, to be honest. I think I'm avoiding him like the plague this year in all
Yeah,
cases.
him, Mixon, Chubb, or him, Mixon, and Najee. Just don't draft them.
Yep. All right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with another upside wide receiver pick right here. I'm going to go with Matthew Golden, the guy I've been talking up this past week a little bit. I was not a big Matthew Golden guy coming out of the draft just based on the Packers having a makeshift receiver room that basically utilizes guys the same all around. But Matthew Golden's reports out of training camp so far have been pretty exciting. Like the guy already has a new nickname. He's called the Bullet now based on his versatility, right? If you're going to move Matthew Golden around formations, whether that's the slot, whether that's the X position, I really like what Matt LaFleur could do with him. And Jaden Reed's basically been put on the back burner and out of this lineup. And I'm going to bet on the talent at this point here. He's going to be my wide receiver 5. And his range of outcomes is either being worthless in a drop candidate or being a really high upside wide receiver 2 on an explosive Green Bay offense.
Yeah, and it's I think they might pass more too. I was pulling up the stats earlier. It's like pass rate over expectation when Jordan Love was healthy was like plus 3.6.
Yep.
So they're passing much higher rate. It was like 7th in the league, and then when he was injured, it was like the lowest in the league. It was like -8 or something like that. It was like crazy difference. So yeah, I think they're going to pass more this year, and I think they want to pass more. So like I think that's part of the thing here for in the upside case for Golden. For maybe even Dobbs late, for Jaden Reed to some extent as well. So I think there's a lot of different upside cases for this team. This is kind of where it's a little interesting. So like, again, best ball, I'd probably continue to stack wide receiver, redraft, and like startable leagues. I like to start like just hammering running back. And a guy that I think is fun that, again, I'm picking him, his ADP right now is 102, but I'm going to pick him anyways. I'm going to go with Cam Scattaboo from on the Giants. Right now, it's him and Tracy. Obviously, Tracy went 1 pick before him. I'm on Team Scattaboo as of now, just because first off, his pass catching chops are awesome. Like he's like I think a day 1 like as their pass catching guy, and then also is going to have red zone work as well. He just like carried Arizona State to the college football playoff last year. Had like over 2,000 all-purpose yards, and like yeah, he didn't test necessarily well, and I don't think he's necessarily going to be like, a game changer at the NFL level. Like the early reports of training camp is that he's getting first team reps. He's splitting, so I think it's probably a 1A 1B situation with Tracy right off the bat. But I could easily see him just returning value and having some upside there if he's just better than Tracy, who played a couple of good games early, but then did not play very well down the stretch. And Tracy is like, like a fifth, sixth, seventh round pick, something like that. So it's like he didn't get much draft capital there either. So I think that Scadaboo has a ton of upside. And I know I'm just stacking rookies here. I got,
Yeah.
Henderson, Scadaboo, Hampton. I mean, it's one of those things where like when I get later in drafts, I'm like, just one of them's got to hit. One or two of them got to hit. We're in a good spot. Maybe I'll take some veterans to mix it up after.
I like Scatterbo. I think he's an interesting player. The thing with the Giants that just scares me is I can't buy into this backfield. It just there's something about the backfield that just frightens me. I think Scatterbo is an interesting talent. The production at Arizona State is what it is. Tyrone Tracy had his problems last year, and they even found ways to get him out of the lineup. So it's not like they're like saying, "Hey, Tyrone Tracy is going to be our guy." And I think that's encouraging for people that buy into Scatterbo. But I just think that the Giants running backs are those like group of starters, like kind of like we had with Zamir White last year, where they were just so unproductive. But
Yeah.
the difference is we drafted Zamir White in round five or six last year, I think is what his ADP was. These
Yeah.
guys are going in round 9. So at this point, you're just hoping for the best with these guys, and it's an upside pick, if anything.
Yeah, and I think the key too is he catches passes. So that's obviously a
Yeah.
big deal. Like because even if they suck, he averages like 4 yards a carry. That gets 12 carries. That's not really enough to do anything. But if he catches 3, 4 balls a game, 30, another 20, 30 yards, that puts him more in like the 9 to 11 points per game range. If he scores a touchdown, he's like an RB2-ish of the week, RB1 of the week.
Yeah.
That's fine. But like so he has a little bit more of a floor built in, whereas like a Zamir White like was just like an early down grinder on a shit team. So like it was like I think a bad that was a tough look there. But I'm gonna go with another interesting guy here that was kind of buried on sleeper ADP. I'm gonna go Jordan Mason of the
Oh
Vikings here.
man.
I think he's an awesome pick for a lot of reasons. I mean, I've picked him before Scadaboo a couple of times in some of my leagues. Like all the talk is that he's going to split work with Aaron Jones. Our guy, there's this guy on Twitter who I've gotten to know. His name's Crack Rock. Sounds ridiculous, but he's like good buddies with like the ownership of like the Giants, of the Jets, and the Vikings, basically. And he's like, oh, Jordan Mason's going to come in, be the goal line back from day one, and like split work with Jones because they just want to give him like a little more rest, basically, and like keep him healthy. So I think Mason's going to play a big role on an offense that we already talked about. I think top 5 offensive line, should end up being a good team, should score plenty. So I think he's a perfect like contingent upside too. Like if Aaron Jones gets injured, like Jordan Mason's like a league winner. You know what I mean? Like that's like
Yeah.
he's especially in the 9th, 10th round. So I think he has a decent floor, and then the contingent upside is like insane.
Yeah, see, I was gonna pick him instead of Matthew Golden, but
Oh,
I
really?
was I was
Yeah.
hoping he would fall back to me just because, like, of the
He's
running backs
buried.
available, like, Jordan Mason has the highest ceiling, he really does, like, if everything breaks his way, that's a guy that you want in your lineup, at that point, and I'm in a similar spot here where the RBs just don't wanna talk to me at all. I don't really love them by any means at this point. I will go with Tank Bigsby, though, and to a similar point to where you mentioned with the Giants backs, is that, you know, Tank Bigsby has that built-in work already. He is the early down back in this offense where it's more Travis Etienne and Bashul Tutin fighting for that third down role. And to be honest, I think Etienne could be more of a cut candidate than people think. If Tutin shows out during camp, they're not going to cut Tank Bigsby, who was one of the better running backs after contact last year. I think Tank Bigsby is a guy that fits perfectly within a Liam Cohen offense where we saw Bucky Irving excel. He's going to be nowhere near as good as Bucky Irving, but why can't he be a guy that rushes for 900 yards and 10 touchdowns in this offense when they also have a third down back? And that's RB2 value for me. And he has a high floor, which is nice to see. He's not necessarily like a true upside guy, like potentially like a Jordan Mason type, but he does have a floor and he has a ceiling to where, RB2 could play for me, fill in my backfield if I have a bye week, something like that. And Tank Bigsby does have that value for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tank's a great sleeper. He's just like an awesome late round pick. My only concern with him is pass catching chops. Just like doesn't catch a lot of passes. But I
He
think the
ain't
next
ever gonna play there either.
yeah, like yeah, it's just like is what it is, right? But like you could score
Yeah.
10 touchdowns and have 1,000 rushing yards, and I wouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah. Like the thing that people just, I think that's partly why Tank's so undervalued. He's probably the cheapest starting running back technically in the league. Is because people are like, oh, Travis Etienne's the guy there. He plays on third downs, and Tank Bigsby doesn't, right? Bigsby has value. Early downs have value. I know it's not a standard format, but early downs still can be a guy that you plug and play in your lineup and a potential trade guy if he's averaging 12 to 14 points a week just based on that early down work. I'm going to go with a quarterback here and try to go get my guy before you do. My highest graded quarterback or ranking quarterback is Justin Fields right now.
I
I
had him
got to
queued up. I had him queued
You
up.
had him queued up? Yeah. See,
Yeah, I
I knew
did.
I knew we were both looking for a quarterback there, and Fields is my highest overall guy left. I think we don't even have to talk much about him. Everybody knows at this point. Justin Fields a really good pick in fantasy football because he has that rushing upside. The toe injury, thank God, was not a big deal. Just he got stepped on, and it made it seem like he tore his ACL from the early Twitter reports. But Fields has high rushing upside on a weekly basis, and that's going to raise his floor. Interested to see how he works within this offense, but we all know Justin Fields when he's on the field is a walking 20 points in fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, just like an awesome pick in fantasy. Like, I think he got bumped down in the ADP because of his toe injury. Like, I'm still taking him a bunch. I mean, he's going to score so many fantasy points. I don't think he's a good, like, real life quarterback to win football games, but that doesn't matter at all in fantasy. You get to watch him run
No, it
around and
doesn't.
do crazy YOLO stuff. Those are my favorite quarterbacks. So, yeah, I think he's a legit awesome pick in fantasy this year, with or without Garrett Wilson. You can just run just Justin Fields solo like you have it here, and you don't need a stack here. But I'm going to go with the stack. I'm going to go with Dak Prescott.
Good pick.
And I think that, like, especially I already have CeeDee Lamb. I know you mentioned potentially about George Pickens. Like, I think George Pickens could also crush. Like, this team, they are not going to be able to run the ball at all. They have Jaden Blue, Miles Sanders, and Javonte Williams. I think it's like one of the worst running back rooms in the league, if not the worst. So,
Yep.
and their defense is opportunistic. I don't know if they're good necessarily, but they're interesting and like they're going to cause turnovers, but they're also going to get burned deep. And like, I just foresee Dak having to throw the ball. Like, I bet him to throw over 4,000 yards, 4,500 yards, like at crazy alt numbers. And I think that he could be like one of the league leaders in passing. And that's going to go through CeeDee Lamb. It's going to go through George Pickens. Very condensed target tree. Like, the other guys are just not target earners. And then Jake Ferguson too, I think, to some extent down the road. So yeah, I love this stack with Dak and CD.
Dak is such a good pick this year. I mean, a lot of people. That's the thing is late round quarterbacks this year feels like it's probably better than it's been in the past few seasons. There's multiple guys that have really high upside that can finish within the top 5 guys just based on where the expectations are. The biggest metrics that I look for with these quarterbacks is they have to rank top 12 in passing efficiency, and they also have to be over 300 rushing yards, right? Dak Prescott, he's going to be in that passing efficiency category where like Sam Darnold was last year, where Darnold was in that group despite not meeting that rushing yard mark. He's going to throw the ball enough. I think that George Pickens move is such a good move for him. I just love Dak Prescott this year too.
Yeah, and I think if you look at, like, I mean, he just got injured last year, so it's like one of those things where it's like a tough look, and they got better. Like, George Pickens is like, it is hard to like overstate how much of an upgrade he is over like Jalen Tolbert and like some of these other guys that they're trotting
The
out there.
makeshift wide receiver twos from last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a joke, dude. Like, I don't know what they're even thinking here. So I'm back on the clock. We're kind of getting into sleeper, range here. 11th round. I have, see my build right now. I have 4 wide receivers and 4 running backs. So it ended up being pretty even on the, build standpoint there. Tight end and quarterback. I would consider doubling down a quarterback. But I think I'm fine, honestly, for managed leagues. I usually like to roll with one, maybe one later, one after. But so in this spot, I think, you know what? I'm having a tough time here because there's a lot of guys that I kind of like. I'm going to go with the fun one. I'm going to go with Kyle Williams. He's gotten a lot of hype lately in training camp. He was, productive out of college. He got, like, a lot of people loved him at the Senior Bowl. And then he goes to this Patriots offense that I just want chunks of. Like, I think that he's going to start from day one. He's battling Kayshon Boutte, but at the same time, he's also just like, every practice seems like he's making a highlight reel catch or having a deep ball there. But by most accounts, like, Drake May likes playing with him. He was complimenting him. So people are joking that he's like a training camp Hall of Fame guy, right, already. Which like, as long as he gets on the field, that's all we care about. Like, all we want to do is get him out there. He's not going to be consistent necessarily, but he's a guy that I think that like Stephon Diggs, I've been taking like him or Diggs in basically every draft because I think if Diggs pans out, Kyle Williams is probably just like a boomer bust stretch, outside guy. But if Stephon Diggs is, he was ripping Tussie on a boat with Cardi B, he's old, he's coming off season-ending injury. Like, I think his downside's low enough that Kyle Williams could step up and be better. So it's like, I want one exposure one way or the other through Diggs, through Williams, through Hunter Henry, maybe even Pop Douglas later too. I think the upside on all these guys is massive.
Yeah, I feels like one of the Patriots pass catchers is going to have that year where they break through. Obviously, Diggs has had breakthrough years in his career, but nobody's valuing him based on what he's done as his past. One of these guys are going to outperform their ADP because Drake May is going to take a step forward. The offense had no talent around him last year. It's going to be somebody. I think Kyle Williams is probably the fourth most likely person to take that step, maybe third most likely, right? Him and Pop Douglas, I feel like, are in interesting spots. I'm interested to see what Josh McDaniels' role will be in getting the slot involved. Who knows? Pop Douglas in PPR leagues could basically be a Khalil Shakir, which
Yeah.
would be interesting. As far as my pick goes, I already have five receivers right now. I'm really, I have to do it. Trey Harris, put him in my team right now. Right, this is another training camp, Hall of Fame type guy right now. The amount of reports that you just say, "Oh man, Trey Harris is the real deal in Los Angeles right now." Coming out of the combine, I was like, "Man, Trey Harris, this guy's not going to be that good in the NFL." But the more I kind of do a deeper dive into it, like he only played 8 games last year and he had 1,000 receiving yards. The production is similar to Scatterbo. Like there's guys that just don't test well and just show up in the NFL and are dogs. Like Trey Harris, his yards per route run were elite despite not having elite athletic tools. And I think that just Trey Harris paired with Justin Herbert, I can get him in the 11th round. It's just a really good value right now. And I want to get another piece in that Chargers passing offense that has to go to somebody else besides Lad McConkey. And it's not going to be Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, I was between Kyle Williams and Trey Harris. I like them both. I have two of my higher owned players so far in drafts. So yeah, definitely in on both those guys.
And then my next guy, I'm gonna go with Garendo here. I think Isaac Garendo. I know I'm screwing over whatever McCaffrey owner has like him in this league, but Isaac Garendo is such a good pick this year. And I think if you're in a point where you are kind of in this range of if you don't want to go to quarterback right now with like Drake May, JJ McCarthy, right? The pick that makes the most sense of guys that could not come back to you is Isaac Garendo. Right? Garendo is going to potentially play if McCaffrey misses time. We all know Christian McCaffrey loves to miss time here and there. And I want every piece of Isaac Garendo that I can get if I own McCaffrey. And if I could snipe him from a McCaffrey owner, I think it's a great thing at the end of drafts.
Yeah, the way I like to view a lot of these guys is like, we talked about it earlier with Jordan Mason, but like a lot of these running backs, it's like, I don't care if they score 0 or 1 or 2 points on the bench because they're on my bench. Like, but I like to know, like if McCaffrey gets injured, like I like to know when to start them. Like it's like so like if like I don't really care as much about the guys who are going to score 6, 7 points in like these leagues because that doesn't matter for my actual starting lineup. I want a guy who has the upside to score 25 points or 20 points or even 15 points when he actually cracks the starting lineup. So like that's a perfect example there with Isaac Garendo. And there are a couple other running backs in this range that I think fit the bill too, that like have that similar like contingent upside where starter goes down and you have like a league winner basically. That's what you're looking for and trying to stack as many of those guys as possible and just get lucky.
It all at the end of the day, it all has to happen a little luck. But if you draft like guys with high upside, the luck part goes down a little bit because one of them eventually is going to pan out for you.
Yeah, and there's two more guys that I think are interesting that actually I think have some standalone value and potentially upside to win leagues. Contingent upside. First one I'm going to go with is Dylan Sampson, Cleveland running back. Quinshawn Judkins is gonna. I don't even know if he's going to be on the team, to be honest. Like after this, like we're looking at a spot where hasn't been signed yet by the Browns, and the Browns are, I think the owner said that he's hopeful that at some point they sign him, like to ever, like just even sign him. He obviously hasn't been in training camp, hasn't been involved at all. Like, and then Jerome Ford, got injured already a little bit. Like, reports out of camp are that Sampson's looked like their best running back so far. He can play on early downs, he can catch the ball, like he can do everything. So, do I think the Browns are going to be good? No, probably not. But is he going to have touches and could he be good? Maybe. Like that's all I can really ask for is like, I think that from day one, he'll have a role. And then if he's any good, he'll have a big role. If not, then I'll probably just toss him back on the waiver wire, and that's fine. It's like it's I think a good upside case there. And then another guy, doubling down kind of on the strategy here is Woody Marks that I already talked about at the top. I don't think that Mixon is going to play very much at all this year for a couple of reasons that are not necessarily public right now, but I feel pretty strongly that he's not going to play. And so that leaves us with Nick Chubb and Woody Marks. My initial reaction was like, okay, Nick Chubb probably going to start week 1, probably going to have the early down work, probably touchdown work, which I think is probably still the case. But he is, turning 30. His last year, he had averaged 3.3 yards per carry, suffered a second season-ending injury. The year prior, he was crushing and then snapped his leg like in half, basically against the Steelers. And then a quote comes out from the coaching staff that was like, yeah, he's not the same as he used to be, but he really loves football. And he's out there and he's trying his best. I'm like, that's not an inspiring quote for me. That was D'Amico Ryan saying he's not the same as he used to be in guy's age, basically is what he's saying. So yes, I think Chubb gets early down work, but Woody Marks is a good pass catcher. They traded a future 3rd-round pick to trade up to get Woody Marks. So they clearly very much like him. And he's a good fit in their scheme, their outside zone running scheme. Matt Harmon just did a reception perception thing on him as well. So I think Marks from day one is their pass catching guy. Again, so it's some small floor, which we don't really care about, but it exists. And then the contingent upside, if Chubb sucks and Mixon misses the year, which I think is significantly more likely than the market is projecting, then Marks ends up being a hit. And again, if he sucks or just Chubb is playing awesome, toss him back in the waiver wire. It's not a problem. And then you find someone else.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part too is you look at kind of the notes over here too. The Texans are being very cautious with him at training camp. Woody Marks is going to have a role. I am interested to see how the whole backfield shakes out. Maybe Dameon Pierce gets healthy enough to make this an annoying backfield, but the Texans have talent around them, especially in the passing game. Even if the offensive line is not necessarily the best in the league, right? That running game is going to be valuable because they have actual talent in the passing game that makes things interesting. In my slots here, I'm going to double up. Let's see here. I got to go get my handcuff real quick. Jalen Wright, I know I already mentioned Devon Achane's injury concerns, and he's had a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. Nothing necessarily significant, but he's a pick that I feel like you have to take a look at the end of your drafts. Jalen Wright is a barn burner. People are down on him from last year because he didn't live up to all the hype. He was a big-time sleeper last season. Right, the RB2 is wide open in Miami. Jalen Wright actually could have a role if Devon Achane is healthy. So there's that upside there. And then another player, Roschon Johnson here. I'm going to take him to potentially earn that goal line and short yardage work for the Bears. I'm not a big DeAndre Swift guy at all. I'm not drafting him in any leagues. I think if I want a running back in this offense, I'll take a gamble on, Roschon Johnson or Kyle Monaghan late in these drafts because I think one of them is going to have much more value at their positions compared to DeAndre Swift, who's just historically struggled the past few seasons outside of that Philadelphia year.
Yeah, no, I love these are all great upside plays that I've been drafting a ton of too. Jalen Wright, if you think about last year, maybe it was the year, it was last year, Raheem Mostert was an 8th, 9th round pick, alongside Devon Achane being a high pick. People were not scared, that another guy could play a role here. I think that Jalen Wright could end up, playing a big role there as well, on early downs, especially just mixing both of them in. And then Roschon, yeah, I'm not a big buyer in Swift. I think he's going to start. I think he's probably going to be the 1A to start the year, barring a trade. But I would not be surprised to see them make a trade. I would not be surprised to see Roschon or Monangai more involved. I don't know. It's just something doesn't sit right considering the last time him and Ben Johnson were together. Jamal
Williams didn't even have
100
carries on the year.
Yeah, late career Jamal Williams got 250 carries over DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand that. Do we need to draft a kicker in defense, or what do you think here? Do you want to
Absolutely not. Go ahead and pick your sleepers.
I was about to say the roster says kicker and defense, but I would prefer to just keep blasting sleepers here. I wasn't sure, so I probably would have waited to take Woody Marks there, until a little bit later. Let's see here. We'll go with, let's see here. Do we need maybe another QB could be nice. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with Michael Penix. I already have Drake London. Again, kind of completes my other stack there with London. So, I think, again, we already touched on it. I think Michael Penix could be in for a massive, massive season, throw the ball a ton. You know, obviously has plenty of support up front, plenty of support from Bijan Robinson, and then Drake London. And, you know, you'd want Darnell Mooney to be healthy. I think Ray-Mary McLeod can fill in admirably. I've been drafting him in like the 21st, 20th rounds of like whatever, you know, like late drafts you're playing in. But yeah, I think him and London, what did I think he targeted London 30 times in 2 games, something like that in his
Yeah,
last
yeah. I
2 games.
mean, London's target share was like well over 30%. I think it was around 35% when he was playing.
Yeah, so he had okay, so here he goes. It was week 17 and 18. He had 13 targets, 7 catches, 106 yards in week 17. Week 18, he had 18 targets, 10 catches, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean,
Yeah, that's nuts.
again, there's no way that that's like a scalable, like you can't extrapolate that. But like it doesn't need to be anywhere near that for London and Penix to both be pretty awesome.
London was awesome last year with Kirk too, but like he can take another step just based on Michael Penix being able to do more as a quarterback.
Oh, totally. Just fit it in tight windows downfield. That's like something that Kirk just couldn't do.
No, no.
All right, so I'm gonna go with another. I'm gonna go with a wide receiver here. I'm gonna go with Pat Bryant, Denver Broncos wide receiver. Watched him play live a couple of times last year. Went to University of Illinois. Like, I think that he's in a really ambiguous situation with the wide receivers. Like Devon Bailey's gotten a lot of hype. Marvin Mims has gotten a lot of hype. And Troy Franklin might play a little bit. But the way that Sean Payton continues to talk about Pat Bryant after they drafted him, Sean Payton was like, I like the way he plays. He reminds me of Michael Thomas, obviously who played with Sean Payton prior. And then,
Yeah.
After training camp, he goes in and is like, yeah, like he looks like Michael Thomas. Like he said it again and was like, yeah, he's doing everything we asked. He's awesome. He's been playing really well. So like, I think they're going to probably rotate pass catchers to start like they did last year amongst their like ancillary guys. So it was like, Sutton playing the entire snaps and then like 4 guys rotating in. I think that's probably going to be the case to start. But again, I think the upside here is pretty interesting if he ends up panning out to the extent that Sean Payton thinks. I mean, he went 14 picks after RJ Harvey. And, RJ Harvey obviously has a massive opportunity and is a good talent. But like, again, they picked him pretty close together. So I don't think they're like, I don't know if it warrants as like a, 10 to 15 round in ADP difference as well. So it's kind of an interesting upside case here for Pat Bryant, who didn't necessarily test that well, didn't necessarily produce that well. But again, it's similar. Like Michael Thomas was saying, he was known as the bad Michael Thomas. That was the joke, is that coming out of college, Michael Thomas, the one that we know is good. There was another Michael Thomas on the Rams. He was like the famous Michael Thomas, the one in the Saints, was known as the bad Michael Thomas because his profile wasn't that good out of college. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I think the exciting part is that Sean Payton has a lot of new weapons to play with, and he finally has a team that he's built up, and that's exciting for me to get more parts of that Broncos offense. I love RJ Harvey this year. I think people that are scared of J.K. Dobbins ruining him are just overthinking things. I mean, this is a guy that Sean Payton wanted and targeted. He's going to be great. I think Pat Bryant's potentially a guy that, is worth a flyer late in drafts. I think Marvin Mims is probably the only one that could potentially hold Pat Bryant back, but they're going to play different roles, right? Mims is more their gadget home run hitter type where they utilize him a lot on screen passes and stuff like that. But Pat Bryant could have that underneath role that's almost a little bit different than Courtland Sutton as well. Last pick here, I'm going to go with another wide receiver to close out. Cedric Tillman here, the quote-unquote league winner for 2 weeks last year. Tillman, has Joe Flacco as his quarterback now, and that makes me very excited. If Flacco wins this role, this passing offense is not going to be as bad as some people think. I think if Kenny Pickett or Dylan Gabriel somehow managed to win it, wouldn't be super thrilled about picking Tillman here, but I think Tillman does have a little bit of value. I think Judy obviously is their wide receiver 1, but Tillman can be a quality wide receiver 2 on a team that is expected to be trailing a lot, can earn a lot of PPR volume. And I like Tillman there potentially at the end of drafts.
Yeah, that's probably who I was going to pick. Honestly, I just wanted to keep scrolling and see if there's anything else that was interesting to me. But I like Tillman as well. People are saying he's the wide receiver 1 right now in Cleveland. That's like what the early reports have been. So wouldn't be that surprising.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about it too is as we get worked through the preseason training camp, everything's going to change on this board and we're going to have a ton more values, which is the good part about it. Overall, how are you feeling about your team, Connor?
Pretty good, man. It's I just got a lot of my guys obviously like reached essentially here, but starting with some strong wide receivers and then a bunch of just upside of running back. So like again, Hampton and Henderson are probably getting the nod week 1, but I could easily see starting Mason, starting Samson, Marks, Scadaboo at some point. like, the running back slots. And then wide receivers have a core four that I feel really good about early. And then you maybe mixing Kyle Williams as in the flex there as well at some point too. So, or Pat Bryant. So, I think that's great. And then obviously elite tight end, and then stack both, Dak with CD and then Drake London with Penix. So, that's what I like to do. It gives you week to week upside. You play the matchups there based on which quarterbacks you're playing better, or just ride the waiver wire and just, drop one and add another. It's, I think, really league dependent and what your league likes to do, because I think that both are very viable strategies.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the main themes for both of our teams is we're picking for upside on basically all of our picks. We want to get the guys that have the best chance of being top end of their position and values where they're currently going. I mean, you take a look at our guys after basically filling out our first 6 picks. We're picking for guys that can potentially be high end wide receiver two, or high end RB2s, right? And that are going as basically flex values at most. So I think a common theme that I think you take out of this is there's a ton of value to be had late in drafts right now that you still need to be finding your sleepers and your guys that make sense for your lineups. And regardless of if you start wide receiver or running back, you can always find those guys later in the draft that can go fill out your lineups and have that, upside that cashes in on that yearly value. Overall, though, appreciate having you on, Connor. Thanks for coming today. If you guys are interested in more Blitz Sports media content, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys next time.